For years, Vancouver was the city everyone wanted to move to. The weather was better, the scenery was unbeatable, and owning a property there felt like winning the lottery. But now something strange is happening. People are leaving one of Canada's most desirable cities. Businesses relocating. Affordability has completely broke down, and some people who spent their entire lives there are saying they never want to come back. The golden sheen of the West Coast has begun to tarnish under the weight of harsh economic realities. And the scary part is that it might not just be a Vancouver problem. It could be the first warning sign for major cities across Canada. As structural cracks appear in our most iconic urban centers, we have to look past the beautiful skylines and examine the real-time exodus of the middle class. So why are people leaving? Where are they going? And what does this mean for the future of Vancouver? Let's talk about it. Now, before anyone jumps into the comments, I want to make something very clear. Vancouver is still one of the most sought after and beautiful cities in Canada. You have the mountains, the ocean, mild winters, incredible scenery, and a lifestyle that very few places can match. If you were ranking Canadian cities purely based on natural beauty, Vancouver is probably at the very top. But at the same time, a lot of longtime residents feel like the city is changing, and not necessarily for the better. I've spoken with people who have left Vancouver entirely. Some have moved to Alberta, some went to Ontario, and others moved to smaller communities throughout British Columbia and even other countries. And one thing that keeps coming up in these conversations is the city simply doesn't feel the same anymore. Many people talk about rising homelessness, visible drug use, increasing safety concerns, and areas of downtown that have changed dramatically over the past 5 or 10 years. Certain neighborhoods that used to feel vibrant now feel neglected. And people who lived in Vancouver for decades are saying the quality of life isn't what it used to be. It forces a difficult conversation about the true cost of living here. And for years, locals joked about paying the sunshine tax, the unspoken financial sacrifice required to enjoy the West Coast lifestyle, especially in Vancouver. But today, that tax feels like a less quirky compromise and more like an unsustainable burden. When you pair skyrocketing housing costs and a punishing cost of living with growing social fractures, the math stops adding up for a lot of families. It's no longer about whether you can afford a mortgage. It's about whether the community spirit and daily peace of mind justify the price tag. The glitz of the glass towers doesn't quite hit the same when the streets below feel increasingly disconnected. That doesn't mean Vancouver is suddenly a bad city. It's far from it, but doesn't suggest that some of the reasons people are willing to pay a premium to live there might not feel as strong as they once did. The postcard views remain undefeated, but the reality of daily life in the city is writing a very different story. Let's be honest, the biggest reason people are leaving Vancouver isn't weather, nightlife, restaurants, it's housing. For years, home prices continue climbing faster than incomes. Even when the market softened slightly, prices remained extremely expensive relative to what the average household earns. Today, buying an average home in Greater Vancouver often requires a household income that many Canadians simply don't have. Even the highly educated professions earning six-figure salaries struggle to enter the market. Or if they do, they just can't afford other things in their life. Interest rates made the problem even worse. When rates were sitting around 2%, people could at least stretch themselves to make the numbers work. But after interest rates climbed dramatically, monthly mortgage payments exploded. The reality is that even if home prices fell 5 or 10%, the borrowing costs increased enough that monthly payments often became significantly more expensive. This economic squeeze has fundamentally shifted the dream of home ownership. Instead of building equity, buyers face the bleak reality of being house poor, pouring every available dollar into a basic living space. It leaves virtually no room for savings, travel, or starting a family. The financial anxiety has overridden the allure of the mountains. Consequently, the traditional path of working hard and buying a home is fractured, forcing a generation of talent to look eastward, and people started asking themselves a very simple question. Why am I paying over $1 million for a home when I can move somewhere else, spend half as much, and still have a great quality of life? And that's exactly what many people have done. One of the biggest migration trends in Canada over the past several years has been people leaving British Columbia and moving to Alberta. And honestly, it's not that difficult to understand why. When you compare housing costs between Vancouver and cities like Calgary or Edmonton, the difference is enormous. In many cases, people can sell a condo or a small townhouse in Vancouver and purchase a detached home elsewhere while dramatically reducing their monthly expenses. For young families, that difference can completely change their lifestyle. Instead of stretching every dollar towards housing costs, they can afford larger homes, bigger yards, lower mortgage payments, and more financial freedom. They are trading a grueling financial grind for breathing room. Furthermore, Alberta's booming job market and lack of provincial sales tax add a powerful economic incentive to the equation. It is no longer just about surviving, it's about thriving. While Vancouver offers undeniable coastal charm, Alberta is countering with something far more practical, an actual path to prosperity and stability. It's not necessarily that people dislike Vancouver. Many simply feel The math no longer works. 5 or 10 years ago, if you wanted a high-paying job, you often had to live in a major city. That has dramatically changed. Remote work, online businesses, digital careers, consulting, technology, market, finance, and countless other industries have allowed people to earn large incomes from almost anywhere in the world. The traditional corporate mandate that tied professional success to a physical downtown office has dissolved. If you can work remotely 3 or 4 days a week, or even entirely from your home, suddenly living in the most expensive city in Canada becomes much harder to justify. Why anchor your life to an exorbitant cost of living when your livelihood is entirely untethered? I've spoken with people that have moved to Kelowna, Calgary, smaller communities throughout British Columbia, and even outside Canada entirely while maintaining the exact same income, or even better. They are unlocking an entirely new level of purchasing power simply by changing their postal code. For many people, Vancouver no longer feels like a requirement. It's just become a choice. And when something becomes a choice, people begin to compare value. They start weighing the prestige of the city against the tangible freedom or smaller mortgage and a slower, more intentional pace of life. Another major change is that Vancouver no longer has a monopoly on lifestyle. Years ago, if you wanted great restaurants, trendy coffee shops, shopping, entertainment, or a vibrant community, you needed to be close to downtown Vancouver. The urban core was the undisputed cultural heart of the region, while outlying areas were viewed merely as sleeping bedroom communities. Today, that's simply not true. Communities throughout the Lower Mainland have developed dramatically. Cities like Port Moody, Coquitlam, and Langley, and others offer incredible restaurants, growing downtown cores, shopping districts, and entertainment options. These municipalities have successfully cultivated their own unique identities, boasting great culinary scenes and robust cultural hubs that rival anything found on the peninsula. Many people are realizing that they can live outside of Vancouver, save hundreds of thousands of dollars, and still enjoy most of the same amenities. The cultural gap is closed, but the price gap remains massive. For families, this becomes more attractive. Schools, parks, recreation facilities, and larger homes often become more important than nightlife or downtown access. And trust me, I know from experience. As priorities change, so does where people choose to live. Ultimately, the suburbs are no longer just a compromise for those priced out of Vancouver. They have become a preferred destination. Transportation has also changed. Electric vehicles have lowered commuting costs for many households. Better highway infrastructure, remote work schedules, and flexible work arrangements have reduced the need to live close to the office. The dread of the daily gridlock has been significantly blunted by the fact that it is no longer an everyday requirement. Someone living outside of Vancouver today might only commute a few days a week. If you drive downtown 2 or 3 times weekly while saving hundreds of thousands of dollars on housing, many people feel that trade-off is worth it. Time commitment may still exist, but financially the decision often makes sense. Furthermore, transit expansions have made surrounding regions much more connected, allowing commuters to trade stressful bumper-to-bumper traffic for predictable, productive train rides. So let's answer the question, is Vancouver dead? No. Vancouver remains one of the most desirable cities in Canada and arguably one of the most beautiful cities in North America. People will continue moving here. Businesses will continue investing here. Tourism will remain strong. The global elite affluent buyers will always ensure the city's real estate remains high value property. But what is happening is that Vancouver is becoming increasingly difficult for the average person to justify financially. Fabric is shifting, creating a city of stark contrast where the middle class is steadily being hollowed out. The city hasn't lost its beauty and it hasn't lost its appeal. What it may be losing is accessibility. And when enough people feel priced out, when enough people begin questioning value, and when enough people discover they can have a similar lifestyle elsewhere for significantly less money, people start leaving. Ultimately, Vancouver isn't dying. It is simply transforming into an exclusive luxury destination, leaving behind the very people who gave it life. The bigger question isn't whether Vancouver is dying. The bigger question is whether other major cities are heading down the same path. Toronto faces many of the same affordability challenges. Other large cities are becoming increasingly expensive. Younger generations are struggling to enter the housing market, and we are witnessing a nationwide urban crisis where the fundamental contract between hard work and comfortable living has broken. Mid-sized cities that were once affordable refuges are now seeing their own prices surge as displaced buyers look for an escape hatch. If Vancouver serves as a warning sign, the conversation isn't just about one city. It's about affordability, quality of life, and what Canadians are willing to pay to live in major urban centers. It forces us to look how our communities are built and who are they actually built for. When teachers, healthcare workers, and young professionals can no longer afford to live in the communities they serve, the foundation of the functional city begins to erode. Because at the end of the day, people don't just move because they want to. Sometimes they move because they feel they have no choice. They're being squeezed out by an economy that prioritizes property values over people. And that may be the biggest challenge Vancouver faces moving forward. If they cannot find a way to balance its breathtaking luxury with basic economic survival for its residents, it risks becoming a beautiful hollow shell, a postcard city without a soul. Anyways, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Drop a comment, a like, and I really appreciate it. Thank you.